Hello, everyone, and welcome to AP Daily. My name is Greg Hill, and I teach at Dr. John D. Horn High School in Mesquite, Texas. Today, we're going to talk about topic 2.3 population composition. What will we learn? We're going to talk about population composition in terms of patterns of age structure, sex ratios, and population pyramids and their uses. So, what's behind the numbers? Let's look at an example. Age structures. Age structures look at the proportion of the total population in each age group. These age structures can vary based on age distribution of an individual. They can also vary by ethnicity and socioeconomic status. These are used to help create population pyramids, as we'll see later. This gives geographers a bird's eye view to the dynamics of a population. How do we calculate sex ratios? You take the number of male births and divide it by the number of female births, and you take that number and multiply it times 100. As we dig a little deeper, if the ratio is a little less than 100, that indicates to us that there are more female births than there are male births. If the ratio is at 100, that tells us that male births to female births are pretty much even. If they're greater than 100, that tells us that there are more male births, more male babies than there are female babies. Scientists tell us that the standard biological level is 105 male births to 100 births. There is no consensus as to why that is the case, but it's pretty much consistent across the globe. A couple of patterns we look at as geographers. First of all, sex ratios tend to be higher at younger ages. As populations get older in age, those ratio differences started to decrease and often flip by middle age. This is due to several factors. One of the most prominent is sex selective practices, such as sex selective abortions, female infanticide, female child abandonment, and others. Geographers can also look at variation, as we mentioned before, in various subgroups, whether it be by ethnicity, whether it be economic status of a country, and also by socioeconomic status of an entire country. Here are some example countries. As you can see at the top, China stands at the top with 114 male babies to 100 female babies. This is due to their one child policy, which we'll talk about in topic 2.7. India is second at 110 to 100 due to their preference for male babies over female babies. This is a connection you can make with Unit 3 culture, as many Indian families prefer male babies for their economic potential. Population pyramids. These are also known as age sex structures. They're constructed by sex or gender on the horizontal axis and by age on age cohorts on the vertical axis. Age cohorts or age groupings are basically 5-year groupings of groups of people. Geographers can get a snapshot of the demographics of a particular country and or a region. What does this tell us? Is the population growing rapidly? Is it growing slowly? Or is it starting to decline based on the age sex cohorts that we see on population pyramids? What do population pyramids tell us? If it has a wide base, that means it has a lot of children that are in the lower age cohorts. It indicates to us that there are high accrued birth rates and that its population is growing very rapidly. If it has a more narrow base, but yet it's still bigger than the rest of the population pyramid, they still have a growing population, but their crude birth rate is starting to decline. We see this in countries like Mexico and Guatemala, which in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they had an extremely wide base on their population pyramid. If the middle is the widest portion, then the growth is slowing. On a narrow trophy-shaped population pyramid with, say, a large top cohort in the 80 to 85 range, that tells us that there is a high crude death rate and a lower crude birth rate, indicating us that that population may be starting to decline. Population pyramids can be looked upon in various scales. Here we see the regional scale of Southern Asia, which has very high crude birth rates. You'll also notice it has a high number of people in their childbearing years. We can look at it at the country level. Here is Finland. You notice that it's the lowest cohorts, its base is very narrow, its middle is very wide, and its even top cohorts in the 70 plus range is even bigger. This tells us that it has an aging population and that its population is starting to decline. The United States, as you can see here by its population pyramid, by the 50 to 59 range, these are our baby boomers. And you can see they're one of our largest cohorts. As they start to age and as our birth rates start to decline, the, our pyramid could drastically change over time. Let's practice. Here's some age sex structures for various countries. Here you see the United States with most of the people from 25 to 54, then a huge chunk at 65 and over. Uganda with almost 50% of its population from 0 to 14, and another large cohort from 15 to 24. What does that tell us? They have a high crude birth rate, and they also have a huge chunk of their population that is in their most fertile years. Greece, you'll notice that it is age structured that many of the people are in the 65 and over range. They have a rapidly aging population, and at the same time, their crude birth rates are starting to fall as well. Over time, you will see their 0 to 14 possibly dip below 9%. Let's look at a real world example. You've been asked to determine if there may be a problem with underreporting of female births in Rajasthan, India. The birth registers for the district showed 2,456 male births and 2,102 female births. How will we calculate the sex ratio? You would divide 2,456 by 2,102, multiply that times 100 to get a sex ratio of 117. What does that indicate? That indicates that there are 117 male births for every 100 female births. You can look at population pyramids at different scales. Here we have West Virginia. You'll notice that it has a high number of people from 55 and over, the baby boomer generation. Let's look at the county scale. You'll notice here in this county in Colorado, now don't begin to ask me how to pronounce that, but just looking at the sheer numbers, you'll notice at the bottom that it has a very low number of young people, but it has a high number of senior citizens. This area is home to several recreational activities, also retirement communities as well. What can we as geographers glean from this? Who would this information be important to? Well, if I provide services to senior citizens, whether it be recreational facilities, medical facilities, I would look at this and target this as an area of interest. We can look at the city scale. This is the Salt Lake City metropolitan area. You'll notice that it has a large cohort from 0 to 4, 5 to 9, on up to the 20s. This is a strong indicator of families with young children. What should we take away? Geographers can understand societies at a variety of scales by looking at population composition. We look at who's being counted, what groups are being counted. Are they being grouped by age? And they can also be grouped by sex. We can inform governments, we can inform retail, we can inform real estate sector. Geographers can use the lens of the why of where, why here and not there, just by looking at population pyramids and age sex structures. This has been your AP Daily. My name is Greg Hill, and I want to give a special shout out to the Indians of Tioga High School in Ball, Louisiana, and teacher Jessica Butler. Thank you.